Good morning, Metro. Now that's how you read the word. And amen. Whew, Lord help. I feel seen. In 2020, a rabbi colleague invited me into his congregation to co-lead a conversation at Yom Kippur. And if you don't know, Yom Kippur is it is the highest holy day in Judaism, where it's called the Day of Atonement, or you might say at-one-ment, when our Jewish siblings are seeking forgiveness from God. And it's a collective moment. So this is when they come together. There is fasting and praying. And it wasn't unusual for me to be invited, but it was 2020. So it was also the year when Breonna Taylor was murdered, where Ahmaud Arbery was murdered for jogging, where George Floyd was murdered by a police officer. This was also the year when the streets across this country were painted Black Lives Matter and letters taller than I am all across the streets. And so in this congregation, we read the books like everyone did that year, and we talked about implicit bias. And I want to be clear, as someone who is an anti-racist organizer and educator, implicit bias is the tip of 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 the iceberg, but it was a starting point for this group, and so we entered into this conversation. And so I did some digging, and I pulled out my old notes, and I went to the Perception Institute, and they explained that thoughts and feelings are implicit if we are unaware of them or mistaken about their nature. Now, let's be clear, we all have biases. I'm a little biased towards Ben and Jerry's Cherry Garcia. I'm a little biased towards my nieces. I think they are the most amazing girls on the planet, right? So we have some biases, right? But we can also have biases that are aversions to people and groups of people. And the Perception Institute says a fairly commonplace example of this is seen in studies that show that white people will frequently associate criminality with Black people without even realizing they're doing it. And in fact, sometimes we do the same thing. So think of it this way, and it's so interesting to think back on 2020 and this example that I use. But so 2020 was also the year that my job said, and many of you probably experienced the same thing. I know young people did. The physical space is closed because it was also the height of COVID. So I had to figure out how I was going to do the work that I do on behalf of the domestic violence agency where I work. And that meant getting rid of our old desk. I had to find a new desk, and that took some time because I'm very particular about my things and where I'm going to do my work. We had to get rid of the old filing cabinet and get a new one. And in that filing cabinet, as I began to purge and clean and rearrange, I was pulling out files and I was thinking, why do I still have this? I'll admit, I can be a little bit of a pack rat when it comes to receipts and like, how long are you supposed to keep your tax files? I've got tax files from, I think, well, not my first job, that's way too much. But looking at all these files and you think, why do I still have this? Why is this still here? Implicit bias is a lot like my file cabinet, except we don't always spend time rearranging them. We just pull the files out when we encounter somebody without questioning, how did the file get in there in the first place? Was it because of our teachers? Did they help us file that information away? Was it our parents? Was it our friends? Was it a song, a movie, a TV show? Was it church that created that file that we pull out when we're walking down the street or we're sitting on the subway or on the bus or at Starbucks or shopping in the aisles of Whole Foods, when we encounter someone and without even realizing it, we pull that file out. And then we think, oh, I know you because I have that file. The challenge for us is to consider, how do we stop to interrogate ourselves before that thought turns into action? All of these ways are how we have been socialized to see other people, how to regard them, how to even attempt to know them. And if we're being honest, many of us have been taught how not to see people. There is somebody whose name I will not mention because it's like Harry Potter. We don't mention that name because if you mention the name, he might show up. So there is somebody whose name we won't mention who is a resident of Florida who is working overtime to make sure students from pre-K all the way up to the graduate level will not be taught how to see people in the totality of their experiences in this country and what they've lent to our society. This is well beyond implicit bias. It goes beyond that when someone uses an entire system, the educational system, they're using that to erase an entire group of people by trying to erase and rewrite their struggle, their resistance, and their resilience, and also erase the reasons for their struggle, their resilience, and their resistance. He's not alone. There are plenty of people out there who don't want me to be seen, don't want my history to be seen. So if I'm not seen, I'm not regarded positively. I'm not known for who I am as just Kym. I'm not seen as being trustworthy or even worthy of anyone's time or effort. So when I do finally say, oh my gosh, I feel seen, you hear that sigh? You hear that exhale? It's a relief to be seen by people. And I'm not talking about seen, I'm just talking about being acknowledged. You don't have to physically see me to acknowledge me, to recognize that I have inherent worth and dignity. When I'm seen, I don't have to explain or over-explain who I am, what I can do, what I'm experiencing. I feel seen when I can tell my doctor that I am in pain and they don't treat me as if I am drug-seeking. I feel seen when my middle school teacher sees me as a talented writer and not a problem to be solved in that classroom. To say I feel seen is to say, you get me. Like Sally Field, you like me, you really like me. You know me. But do we really? See, the thing with humans is that we can try, but obviously there's a limit to how much we are willing to see or regard another person. There's also a limit to how much we're willing to share with each other. So I may not let you see some parts of me because I don't know if it's safe. I don't know if you're safe. So I'll let you see little bits and pieces of me. Listen to how the psalmist describes how God sees and knows us. O Lord, you have searched me. You have known me. You know when I sit down, when I rise up. You understand my thoughts from afar. You scrutinize my path and my lying down. You are intimately acquainted with all my ways. Behold, O Lord, you know it all, and you know all of me. We have been thoroughly explored, examined, and known by God. So at my job, at where I work at a domestic violence agency, we might call this stalking. Um, because there's a kind of knowing, like if I were to attempt to get to know someone this well, yeah, I might, yeah, and stalking is against the law. So I'm not saying that God is breaking any laws. I'm just saying that there is an intimacy here that we are not accustomed to being comfortable with. And I honestly don't think that we are as intimate, we know each other as well as we think we do. So couples know each other well, and yet there is something that you may not share with your partner. And look, please don't go home and start interrogating your partner. I'm just saying that there are some things that we may hold back, keep to ourselves. Maybe we talk to our sisters and our brothers and our siblings about some things. So there might be something we don't know. I have a friend I've known since childhood, and we have whole conversations without saying a word. We know each other well, and yet there are things about my best friend. We've known each other for close to 50 years that she doesn't know about me, and I don't know about her. There's always something new to learn about each other on this level. Sometimes there are some great surprises, but with God, I don't know. If you're really reading Psalm 139, you might be feeling a little overwhelmed at the prospect of being known so intimately, and dare I say, so intensely. This is intense knowing. But then you might be overwhelmed at the thought of being known so well by the ever-present God who also loves us. It's good to know that many things, these two thoughts can be true at the same time. Um, I try to lean into the knowing. And I think the psalmist does as well, because listen to what they say. I could try to go to the heavens, and you're there. I could try to go to Sheol, and you're there. I could hop on a plane today and fly to California, and you're already there setting up shop before I get there. You know where I'm going, you know where I'm coming from. And here's the thing, it sounds a little bit like it's so overwhelming to be known by this compassionate God that we cannot bear it to the degree that we try to escape from it. It sounds like the psalmist is trying to escape from being known so well. But then they pretty much say, I give up. There's no place to hide from the creator of all, who is also our creator, who knows us better than we know ourselves. So what is left for us to do? Well, we can just admit to God that I have to praise you and give you thanks for knowing me so well and still loving me. For knowing me, knowing what I say, what I haven't said, what I should have said, what I did and shouldn't have done, and yet you still love me this way? You hem me in from all around me, and you still do love me. There's only one thing for us to say in recognition of all of this. We praise you because we are Black and Indigenous, Asian, Pacific Islander. We are white, woman, man, and neither. We are poor and wealthy, immigrants. We are United Statesians. We are young and not so young. We are deaf, disabled. We have long COVID. We are bilingual, multilingual. We're literate and illiterate. We're from the hood and from the holler. We are rural and suburban and urban, partisan, bipartisan, maybe a little pan-partisan if we're honest. We are pescatarian and vegetarian, vegan, but we're also passing the bacon. We're overweight and underweight. And we're not living our lives based solely on what that scale says to us, because we are also fearfully and wonderfully made. From the core of our being, we have to give you thanks and praise and recognition that your works, us, what I see in the mirror, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. Our core, our soul knows this well. And so, God, we say how sweet and affirming it is to be known and loved and seen by you. Amen.